Hi students, welcome to lesson number 20 on observation method. A brief introduction. Data collection is one of the crucial stages in social research. Unlike in pure research, tools of data collection have to be constructed in social research. Some of the important tools of data collection are observation, interview, questionnaire and schedule. Our knowledge about the universe begins with observation. Practically, all human beings are involved in observation. Observation of the behavior of individuals, groups and organization or their products or outcomes is not only an essential aspect of human life, it also forms a basic method of scientific research in behavioral sciences. Observation can be used both in the laboratory as well as in naturalistic settings. Although behavioral scientists have largely used this method in the naturalistic settings, it also forms a significant component of experimental, that is, both field and laboratory procedure. Indeed, in laboratory settings, careful observation of subjects may not tools of data collection seeks only shed light on the limitation of the experimental procedures, but also generate ideas for future research. Observation involves looking and listening very carefully. We all watch other people sometimes, but we do not usually watch them in order to discover particular information about their behavior. This is what observation in social science involves. Observation is a complex research method because it often requires the researcher to play a number of roles and to use a number of techniques, including his or her 5 senses, in order to collect the data. Now, the objectives for the lesson. The lesson will help the students to first define the method of observation as research tool. Second, explain the meaning and characteristics of observation. Third, elucidate the types of observation. Fourth, to list out the advantages and disadvantages of observation method. Now, we will understand the definition and meaning of observation. Observation has been defined as the selection, provocation, recording and encoding that set of behaviors and settings concerning an organism in situ which is consistent with empirical aims. Literally, observation is a process of seeing the things or events with naked eye, with or without the use of any device, to unravel the complexity of any phenomena to satisfy the demands of an empirical question. Observation is a way of gathering data by watching behavior, events or noting physical characteristics in their natural settings. Observation can be overt, that means everyone knows they are being observed, or covert, that is, no one knows they are being observed and the observer is concealed. The benefit of covert observation is that people are more likely to behave naturally if they do not know they are being observed. However, we will typically need to conduct overt observation because of ethical problems related to concealing your observation. Observation can also be either direct or indirect. Direct observation is when you watch interactions, processes or behaviors as they occur. For example, observing a teacher teaching a lesson from a psychology or sociology curriculum to determine whether they are delivering it with fidelity. Indirect observation is when you watch the results of interactions, processes or behaviors. For example, observing the amount of plate waste left by students in school cafeteria to determine whether a new food is acceptable to them or not. Now, what are the characteristics of observation? Observation becomes scientific only when they follow the certain characteristics, and the first one is that observation is a systematic method, which means that observation is not haphazard or unplanned. The length of the observation periods is the interval between them. The number of observations, the area or situation of observation, and various techniques used for observation which are carefully planned. Often there are systematic managements for controlling the situation if special factors are to be studied. For example, study of honest behavior, sportsman spirit, leadership qualities, etc. Second characteristic is that observation is specific. That means it is not just looking around for general aspect of human behavior. Rather, it is directed at those specific aspects of total situation which are assumed to be significant from the standpoint of the purpose of the study. The layman may frequently overlook what is crucial while observing an event or phenomena, but the scientific observer should look for some definite things which suit his purpose of study, so as to economize his time, money and effort for observation. Third characteristic is observation is objective. It means that observation should be objective and free from bias, if so possible. It should be generally guided by a hypothesis. The observer must maintain ethical neutrality, and he also should consider hypothesis something to be tested. But at the same time, he must maintain a flexible attitude so that he cannot deviate from his original plan when such deviation appears inevitable. The fourth characteristic is that observation is quantitative. Although many important phenomena cannot be quantified, it becomes almost an imperative to use some means for quantifying observation in order to increase their precision and to facilitate their analysis. Even the quality should be converted into quantity, because qualitative data is subjective and quantitative one is objective and can be further be interpreted in an objective manner. Fifth characteristic is that observation is an affair of eyes. P.V. Young remarks that observation is a systematic and deliberate study through eyes. An observer gathers the data which he has seen with his own eyes. So, collecting information through eyes is probably the most trustworthy technique of data collection in social research. Another major characteristic of method is that it definite aim. That is, observation must have some definite aims and objectives. That is, it should be clearly defined before the beginning of the actual observation process. Without the proper aims and objectives, observation will be unsystematic and expensive. Seventh characteristic is the record of observation is made immediately. That is, during the observation period, it is very difficult on the part of the observer to remember each and every element of observation, or you may forget much important information. If we rely on memory, the factor of forgetting will enter and affect the data of observation. Therefore, the observer should record all important information as soon as the observation is completed. And the eighth characteristic is that observation is verifiable. Observation results can be checked and verified. Observation must be verified with usual criteria of reliability, validity and usability. It may be possible to check the findings of the observation by comparing the results of different observers by repeating the study. Now, we will understand the different types of observation, and the different types of observation are: the first one, participant observation. Participant observation is one of the most common methods for qualitative data collection, and it was introduced by Professor Edward Winterman. And it is also one of the most demanding techniques of data collection. It requires that the researcher become a participant in the culture or context being observed. Participant observation incorporates how to enter the context, the role of the researcher as a participant, and the collection and storage of field notes and the analysis of field data. Participant observation often requires months or years of intensive work because the researcher needs to become accepted as a natural part of the culture in order to assure that the observations are of the natural phenomena. For example, when we study the rural and urban conditions of people, we have to go there and watch what is going on. So, the best philosophy of participant observation is that we watch the phenomena and not to ask. The actual behavior of the group can be observed only by participant observation and not by any other method. But there are certain merits for this method, that is, the observer is personally involved in group activities and share their feelings and prejudices. He participates himself or herself and get insight into the behavior of the group. It motivates and stimulates mutual relationship between the observer and observed. He can get more information with accuracy and precision, and the information is recorded in front of the group people. And the demerits of this method is that the observer may develop emotional attachment to his group, which will lose the objectivity of the study, and he cannot observe a certain phenomena in a short time available to him, and he cannot cover a wide area through this method. Another major type of this method is the non-participant observation. The non-participant observation has a lack of participation of the observer in his group activities. He either watch the phenomena from a distance or participate in the group, but never in its activities. You only sit in the group but do not interest in the process. The difference between participant and non-participant observation is that in the former, the observer himself take part in a group and become the member of the group and also participate in their activities with full fledged, while the latter refers to the less or no participation of the observer in his group, their membership and activities. He watch from a distance but do not have active eyesight that what is going on in the field of research. But there are certain merits for this method, and the first one is, although observer himself never attach himself to the group, but the objectivity is maintained. Less emotional involvement of the observer leads to accuracy and greater objectivity, and having secondary relationship with his group, so the information is collected entirely. Through non-participant observation, the research remains very smooth, but there are certain demerits for this method, and they are that it do not have full knowledge about the group activities. They cannot understand the whole phenomena, and they cannot get real and deep insight into the phenomena. The other major method is the controlled observation. Here, observer and observed or subject both are controlled. For systematic data collection, control is imposed on both for accuracy and precision. When observation is pre-planned and definite, then it is termed as controlled observation. In controlled observation, mechanical devices are used for precision and standardized. So, control increase accuracy, reduce bias, ensure reliability and standardization. Another method is the uncontrolled observation. Uncontrolled observation takes place in natural setting without the influence of external or outside control. The observer does not plan in advance, but this is related to day-to-day happenings and socio-cultural problems. It studies some of our life situations. Another major types are the structured and unstructured observation, and in these types careful observations are recorded in a standardized way. It is a planned observation of a phenomena and to follow certain patterns, rules and designs for the purpose what, how and when to observe. Unstructured observation is opposite to structured. So, this is not systematic and unplanned observation. A researcher do not set a plan in advance, but he get the informations freely and there are no rules to be followed by the researcher. Another major type is the casual versus formal observation. Casual observation often takes place during the initial stages of research project. The researcher goes to the situation, look to find the categories and behaviors that will be used later in the formal observation stage. In the first stage, the researcher may also be considering factors such as the best place to stand or the less obtrusive way to dress. When carrying out a formal observation, the researcher will have a clear idea of what behaviors they are looking for and how they will be recorded. So, it is common especially in laboratory situations to record information on video and then to analyze it in more detail. Now, we will understand the diverse situations in which observation can be used. The various situations in which observations are made are as follows, that is, when an ongoing process or situation is observed and through observation you can monitor or watch a process or situation that you are evaluating as it occurs. Secondly, when data is gathered on individual behaviors or interaction between people. Third, observation helps you to observe people's behavior and interaction directly or watch for the results of behaviors or interactions. Fourth, it helps you to understand the physical setting, that is a setting or environment where something takes place, can help increase understanding of the event, activity or situation you are evaluating. For example, you can observe whether a classroom or training facility is conducive to learning. Fifth, when data collection from individual is not a realistic option, if respondents are unwilling or unable to provide data through questionnaires or interviews. So, observation is a method that requires little from the individuals from whom you need data. Now, we will understand the various stages in the process of observation. So, as a good research technique, observation needs proper planning, expert execution and adequate recording and interpretation. And the first stage of observation is planning for observation. And the planning for observation includes definition of specific activities or units of behavior to be observed, the nature of the groups of subjects to be observed, the scope of observation, individual or group, determination of the length of each observation period and deciding about the tools to be used in making the observation and recording. In planning observation of an event, we have to consider certain points, and they are: the first one, determine the focus. Think about the evaluation questions you want to answer through observation and select a few areas of focus for your data collection. For example, you may want to know how well the psychology or sociology curriculum is being implemented in the classroom. So, your focus areas might be interaction between students and teachers knowledge, skills and behaviors. And second stage of planning is design a system for data collection. Once you have focused your evaluation, think about the specific item for which you want to collect data and then determine how you will collect the information you need. Third point is recording, sheets and checklist, and they are the most standardized way of collecting observation data, which includes both preset questions and responses. These forms are typically used for collecting data that can be easily described in advance. Example, topics that might be covered in psychotherapy lessons. And the fourth important point is observation guides. It helps to list the interaction processes or behaviors to be observed with space to record open-ended narrative data. Fifth important step is field notes, and they are the least standardized way of collecting observation data and do not include preset questions or responses. Field notes are open-ended narrative data that can be written or dictated onto a tape recorder. Sixth important type is select the sites. Select an adequate number of sites to help ensure that they are representative of the larger population and will provide an understanding of the situation you are observing. Seventh is to select the observers. You may choose to be the only observer, or you may want to include others in conducting observations. Stakeholders, other professional staff members, interns and graduate students and volunteers as potential observers. Eighth one is to train the observers. It is critical that the observers are well trained in your data collection process to ensure high quality and consistent data. So, the level of training will vary based on the complexity of the data collection and the individual capabilities of the observers. And the ninth one is time your observations appropriately. Programs and processes typically follow a sequence of events. It is critical that you schedule your observation so that you are observing the components of the activity that will answer your evaluation questions. This requires advanced planning. Second important stage is the execution of observation. The expert execution of observation includes proper arrangement of specific conditions for the subject or subjects to be observed. Second, assuming proper role or physical position for observing. Third, focusing attention on the specific activities or units of behavior under observation. And fourth, proper handling of recording instruments to be used. And fifth, utilizing one's training and experience fairly, effectively in terms of making the observation and recording the facts. And the third stage is recording and interpreting the observation. Recording of the observation data should take place either simultaneously or soon after the observation. In the former case, the observer goes on recording his or her observation data simultaneously with the occurrence of the phenomena observed. In the latter case, the observer undertakes to record his or her observation not simultaneously with the actual event, but immediately after he/she has observed for a certain period of time, while the details are still fresh in his or her mind. In viewing, classifying and recording behavior, the observer must take utmost care to minimize the influence of his or her biases, attitudes and values on the observation report. The observer should know what he or she is looking for in a given situation and should carefully and objectively record the relevant data. Subjectivity on the part of an observer may partly be due to his or her emotional involvement, his or her selective perceptions and memory. So, in order to overcome these biases, various mechanical instruments are used to obtain a more accurate records of events. So, the use of cameras, tape recorders, stopwatches, binoculars, audiometers, one-way vision screens, mirrors, etc. allows behavior to be measured to a degree of accuracy, which cannot be achieved by the unaided human observer. It is worthwhile to develop an observation schedule like a question schedule for making and recording observations. The specific behavior to be observed and recorded should be listed in this schedule. Now, what are the various advantages and disadvantages of observation? Now, the advantages of observation. Observation is very direct method for collecting data or information, and it is best for the study of human behavior. Second advantage is that the data collected is very accurate in nature and also very reliable. Third, it improves precision of the research results. Fourth, the problem of depending on respondents is decreased. Fifth, observation helps in understanding the verbal response more efficiently. Through this method, by using good and modern gadgets, observation can be made continuously and also for a larger duration of time period. Seventh, observation is less demanding in nature, which makes it less biased in working abilities. 8. By observation, one can identify a problem by making an in-depth analysis of the problems. And the disadvantages of observations are that the problems of the past cannot be studied by means of observation. Second, having no other option, one has to depend on the documents available. Third, observations like the control observation require some special instruments or tools for effective working, which are very much costly. Fourth, one cannot study opinions by this method. Fifth, attitudes cannot be studied with the help of observations. Sixth, sampling cannot be brought into use. Seventh, observation involves a lot of time, as one has to wait for an event to happen to study that particular event. Eighth, the actual presence of the observer himself and the event to occur is almost unknown, and which act as a major disadvantages of this method. And the ninth one is that complete answer to any problem or an issue cannot be obtained by observation alone. To summarize, it is found that observation as a method of data collection is a very complex, challenging and creative method. Observation method differs from other methods in that it requires a researcher to have more specialized training on how to observe, what and how to record the data, how to enter the field and leave it, and how to remain detached and involved at the same time. The fact that the researcher may have to assume one or more roles is unique to observational studies. There are, however, some similarities to other research methods, such as the need to plan the overall project, review the literature and determine who will be studied and when and where the observation will take place. Finally, the uses of one's senses as well as other data collection techniques make observation a more holistic type of research that allows the researcher to gain a better understanding of insiders from their own perspective.